Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Thank you guys for joining us. Welcome back to On Texas Football. I haven't even really named this segment yet. I don't know what we're going to call this segment. We'll figure out something, I guarantee you. Maybe you can help us out with that. Leave your suggestion in the chat there. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you guys for joining. We'll talk about the Texas pass rush a little bit. The Longhorn, two of their superstars on defense are being celebrated a little bit this offseason. Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill, both considered to be some of the top players at their position, if not the best players at their specific positions. I don't know if Texas has ever had the combination of the best edge rusher and the best linebacker in college football at the same time. Texas, very prestigious program, been around for a long time. I don't know if we've ever been able to boast about Texas having best linebacker in the country and the best edge rusher in the country. So I want to talk about that. And actually, I was, hypothesizing. Yeah, we all kind of predicting Texas is going to have one of the best pass rushers in the country, if not the best pass rusher in the country next season. I set out to try to prove that. All right, so I want to dive into the details, get it. I want to go rabbit holing, as I like to call it, and try to find out if I can find proof that Texas is indeed going to have the best pass rush in the country, or one of the best pass rushes in the country in 2025. So we'll talk about that. Before we get started, though, let's thank our fantastic sponsor for this unnamed segment here on All Texas Football, our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. Very grateful to our friends over at Flat Creek for being loyal members and partners here at All Texas Football. Can't thank them enough, and you'll thank them as well if you try some of their fantastic wine. Did you know the most awarded wine in Texas is actually the vineyard closest to Austin? That's Flat Creek Estate Winery. It's just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award for their vintage wine, Super Texan. It is one of the best wines out there, folks, and my wife loves it. Her mom loves it. My mom loves it. We actually got a chance to enjoy it over the holidays as a family, and they have it actually at your local Specs. I saw a Flat Creek display at our local Central Market here in Austin, Texas. So the good word is getting out about one of the best wines out there, and that's Flat Creek Estate Winery. Not just the Super Texan, though. The rosé is fantastic. The Pinot Grigio is really good as well. They also have a gorgeous venue where they produce these fantastic wines. Has barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend, perfect for a day date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery, and we really appreciate them for being sponsors of this segment, also being partners here with us at On Texas Football. All right, let's get right to it. So I set out to prove that Texas is going to have the best pass rush in the country next year. That's a tough thing to try to prove. So I'd kind of give myself some parameters. So I basically looked at Anthony Hill, who has 8 sacks. Colin Simmons had 9 sacks coming back. I set that as kind of my base. All right. So I want to look at the players who are returning from the 2024 season, returning defenders in 2025 who had at least 8 sacks. All right. And that's kind of where I started my research. And then found some nuggets, all right, and I'll share them with you guys. And it kind of gave me confidence that now I can brag and boast, and maybe you will be able to as well, about Texas having potentially the best pass rush in the country in 2025. They're the only Power 4 program I found with that returns multiple defenders in 2025 who had at least 8 sacks for their current team in 2024. Now, this is important because there are only 3 college football programs I found that returned multiple players who had at least 8 sacks last season. One of those is not a power program. That would be Buffalo. And Rutgers is the other one. And Rutgers actually, they got 2 transfers. One from Ohio, I think another one from James Madison, if I'm not mistaken. So they kind of so you can expect those pass rushers to be pretty formidable. But Texas, the reason it's important that you had guys that were in your system last year who were also able to produce those type of havoc numbers and havoc plays, shows those guys, or at least you can bet on them being even more comfortable in the system. Right, even more aware of the system and less thinking involved. Right, Anthony Hill will be his 3rd year in the system. Colin Simmons, it'll be his his 2nd year in the system. So for me, for Texas, they're the only ones that have guys that are returning that were also in that system. I think that's important. Colin Simmons, the only sophomore who's returning as one of the best pass rushers in college football, who had at least 8 sacks in 2024. So you're talking about a huge amount of upside. All right, expected from a young guy to take a huge leap from year 1 to year 2 when he becomes an active starter for you. Went even deeper. So among the top returning pass rushers with at least 8 sacks in 2024. I wanted to go into pressure rate. For those who don't know what pressure rate is, essentially, pressure rate statistically, analytically, is the total number of pressures divided by pass rush snaps or opportunities. But just look at it as the percentage of times you create a pressure when you're actually rushing the passer, right? That's what we're looking at, the percentage of times you create a pressure when you're rushing the passer. Among the top returning pass rushers with at least 8 sacks from 2024, Texas returns 2 of the top 4 in pressure rate. Anthony Hill, which we'll get into in a second, this guy's got some freakish pressure rate stats. Clev Lubin, I don't know if I got his name right. He's a transfer to Louisville. Jamori Robinson at West Virginia is in that conversation, and then Colin Simmons. Colin Simmons, 19% pressure rate, was actually higher than all but 3 of the top 12 edge defenders who are prospects in the 2025 NFL draft. To give you perspective on it, remember the UCLA defensive end Latu, who ended up being drafted in the first round? He had a 21.5% pressure rate. And he was considered an elite pass rusher. James Pierce, who will be drafted in 2025 out of Tennessee, he was top 5, and he had a 21.3% pressure rate. And I believe that number came from 2023 that I found. Was tough to kind of find the pressure. So these are some of the best pass rushers and guys who are considered elite pass rushers. And 21% is considered an elite number. 10% is considered average for pressure rate. So I looked at 15%. I want to cut it in half, right? So not average, want to be above average. Everybody can't be elite in that category. So I took it at 15% as kind of another baseline that I was looking at. So if you look at basically the pass rushers who had at least 8 sacks in 2024 and also had a pressure rate of at least 15% as well in a single season. All right, in 2024, you end up with 7 players, and Texas has 2 of those players in Anthony Hill and Colin Simmons. All right, so whether you're looking at pressure rate or you're looking at guys that can actually convert that pressure into sacks and splash plays and havoc plays, looks like Texas is returning one of the best pass rushes in college football. I got more, but I want to kind of go to a sidebar here and talk about Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill specifically. Then we'll get to Trey Moore too. I'm not going to ignore him because he's also, I think, one of your top 3 best pass rushers on the team. So Colin Simmons, 19% pressure rate, kind of gave you some perspective on it. But he was this. There's no doubt about it. The freakiest thing about Colin Simmons is his BGO. All right, and and we'll get you some screenshots of it so you can see, because I've taken screenshots. I've actually just done it with my phone, and there's so many times, multiple times this season, that I have taken screenshots of this dude out of his stance. I'm talking about pass rushing downhill. You can see him on his second step, and everybody else is still in their stance. And the center's the only one who's barely moved the ball. There, I talked to Brian B. Rob about it, Brian Robeson about it, and he said the same thing. He said it's not just his BGO and ball get off. It's got to be film study. There's other stuff that he is recognizing, other data points that he is processing, and not just looking at the ball. And I agree, because there's some times where he is out of his sense. I'm wondering, like, is he offside? I mean, and you can't that ain't just anticipatory. Like, because they don't call him offsides. Like, he's just he's just that quick off the ball. It is. I've never seen anything like it. I don't think any defender in Texas football history has had a BGO like Colin Simmons. I've never seen anything like it. It is as freaky as it gets, and that's his superpower. And as an offensive lineman, I mean, that's hell, because you have to worry about the speed rush when you're getting off the ball that quickly, and that's going to open it up for a lot of counters. The spin move and you come back inside, swim move. So I just think for Colin Simmons, to me, I believe he's going to be a double-digit sack guy. I've already said one of my predictions is you're going to get multiple player defenders with double-digit sacks. But I'll share those screenshots with you because I'm not joking. I got proof of it. I want to make sure I got proof of that. Let's talk about Anthony Hill for a second. And I went and looked at the pass rushing snaps for Anthony Hill via Pro Football Focus. Just because I wanted to make sure, and I wanted to get the analytics to back up the eye test. Because true, the analytics tell you that Anthony Hill's your best pass rusher. Colin Simmons' eye test tells you, I just told you, BGO, that's your best pass rusher. And I believe that's still to be the case. But the analytics will tell you, oh, no. Your best pass rusher is Anthony Hill. You go look at Anthony Hill's had 174 pass rush snaps in his 2 years. He's converted 42 of them into pressure. That's a 24% pressure rate. This year he had a 30% pressure rate. 75 pass rushing snaps, 23 pressures. Over 30%. His pressure rates are freaky. Like so to me, if he doesn't have over 100 pass rush snaps this season, I'll be so disappointed. He had 99. I believe it's the most he's had in a season. If he doesn't have over 100, I'll be so sad. Guy got 8 sacks, guys, and had like 80 fewer than 80 pass rushing opportunities. That is you got to be right from the second level, from the off ball spot, and from the edge. Not only is he the best linebacker in the country, he's the best pass rushing linebacker in the country. When's the last time you can say both of those? Best linebacker and best pass rushing linebacker in the country. You won't find anybody better at either one of those. And that's what's going to get him drafted high. He's a pass rushing linebacker. Texas needs to showcase that this year. If they don't, then he's not going to get drafted as high as you need him to be. He could be drafted as a top 10 pick if you get him 10 sacks. He had 8 last season. He can get 10. Just give him 25, 30, even 40 more pass rush snaps. If me, I'm looking for somebody to play off-ball linebacker if I'm Texas that can solidify and stabilize that position so I can have him rushing a pass some more. He's that good. He's that good at it. So, man, the Anthony Hill, like stats versus in terms of pressure rates, they're mind-blowing. Like I can't fathom somebody in the country having better stats like that at the linebacker position. But in terms of the off-ball linebacker position, not outside linebacker position. All right, let's get back to it. So Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons. Like I said, I don't know if Texas has ever had this dynamic duo with literally this dynamic, best off-ball linebacker, best pass rushing linebacker, best edge rusher in the country. How about this? I went to go deeper. I was like, yeah, what if 2024 doesn't tell the true story? What if you had to go back to 2023? Go back to 2022. So I went back to edge rushers who had at least 8 sacks in a single season since 2022. Wanted to go even deeper. So I found 26 defenders in college football, returning in college football for 2025, who had at least 8 sacks in a single season since 2022. 3 of them will be on the Texas roster. 3 of them. Trey Moore, Anthony Hill, and Colin Simmons. That's more than any other school. There are 2 other schools with 2 each, as we talked about. Among the returning defenders with at least 8 sacks and a pressure rate of at least 15% since 2022, right? That's those 2 baselines. 13 players, 3 of them on the Texas roster. No other school has multiple players, by the way. As a matter of fact, Texas has 2 of the top 6 in pressure rates among that group with at least 8 sacks since 2022. And I got one more for you. Of the 26 defenders with at least 8 sacks in a single season since 2021, Trey Moore is the only one of those defenders who have done it multiple times. He did it in 22 and he did it in 23. Didn't do it in 24 with Texas. Guy had 6 sacks, so came close. He's the only one that have done it twice. Nobody else, no defender in that category, in that group that met that criteria has done it multiple times. You got the best pass rush in college football. Now, and they're moving Trey Moore around. So I talked about that, him playing 3 different positions. The spinner pack. Remember the spinner package from 2013 that Greg Robinson used? It was part of his repertoire. He used it with the Jets and the Broncos, the Kansas City Chiefs when he was in the league. Used it with Michigan and Syracuse when he was in college. And when he was at Texas, when Jackson Jeffcoat got that Defensive Player of the Year in the Big 12, and they had the last time Texas had two defenders with double-digit sacks, which was Jeff Code and Cedric Reed, which I'm predicting actually for the 2025 season, either Colin, Simmons, Anthony Hill, or Trey Moore. Two of those three will have double-digit sacks. They used that spinner package. They took Jackson Jeff Code, put him at an off-ball linebacker position, and essentially used the NASCAR package because they were supplementing. Remember that year was a weird thing where they had some injuries, and they were just kind of working with what they had injuries at linebacker. I do remember that. I remember there were injuries to Jordan Hicks, Steve Edmond had an injury. They moved Jackson Jeffcoat to like a linebacker position when they were playing passing teams or unpredictable passing situations, and they had a surplus of defensive ends. Had Cedric Reed, had Reggie Wilson, Caleb Blewett, Shiro Davis, and so essentially it ended up being a NASCAR package because they had Jeffcoat in the field with two edge rushers as well. How I love the NASCAR package, but they would use him as it hybridized him to be a guy that could rush from the second level and blitz through the A gap, B gap, run twists and stunts. I think they could do that or are doing that with Trey Moore. I think that's what essentially they're moving him around, playing three different positions. He's essentially becoming a spinner. Jeff Howe and I talked about that a little bit too. So shout out to Greg Robinson and that crew because I think that's essentially what they're doing with Trey Moore. They don't believe they have to do that with Colin Simmons or Anthony Hill, but I will say Anthony Hill last year had 76 snaps playing on the edge, like literally playing on the D line. Trey Moore had 29 snaps playing off-ball linebacker. Colin Simmons had 44 at linebacker. You need to be moving these guys around a little bit to try to find a matchup advantage and also to weaponize and hybridize them so they're not so easy to game plan against. It's got to be a lot of that. Trey Moore's already doing it, and I think they can do that with Anthony Hill, of course, from the second level. And even with Colin Simmons, there need to be a little bit of that. And which means you need other guys to help stabilize the off-ball linebacker position, and you need other guys to help stabilize the edge position for you so you can do freaky, exotic things with those three guys. Because that is the best trio of pass rushers in the country, in my opinion. All right, my humble opinion. Let's thank our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery just one more time. For Flat Creek Estate Winery, did you know the most awarded wine in Texas is actually the vineyard closest to Austin? That's right, folks. Flat Creek Estate Winery, just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award this year for their vintage wine, Super Texan. Super Texan is now available at your local spec, so give it a try. Of course, Flat Creek not only produces some of the best wines, they're also a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. Perfect for a day date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery, flatcreekestate.com. All right, folks. Thank you guys for listening to me rant and rave. Maybe we'll start calling it. No, we can't go with Raj Red. I was thinking about something like Longhorn, AWOL. We can do something. We'll figure out something to name this segment by next week. I promise you. But thank you guys for joining us. Thanks to Matthew behind the scenes. He's a real MVP. Thank you to Flat Creek Estate Winery as well. And thanks to you guys for watching and listening. And until next time, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Hook 'em horns.